Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays. My name is Nathan, the host of the show. What to Watch Wednesdays, that is. And on What to Watch Wednesdays, we tend to talk about 3 movies per show, and then the show's over. Tonight's going to be no different whatsoever. The only reason I'm introducing that format is it's very important to understand that the show is often associated with the number 3. And tonight is weirdly tied into that a bit more, rather than disassociated from that, because tonight's topic is concerning the number 3. The 3 movies that we are talking about tonight are all over 3 hours long. Do you see the weird thematic tie between those two things? 3 movies, 3 hours long, 3 ways to leave your lover. I don't know the rest of the joke, and I don't think there is the rest of the joke. So instead, I'm just going to introduce the 3 movies on our watch list tonight, because these 3 movies are all incredibly iconic, well recognizable, and again, all over 3 hours. We will be starting off with Gone with the Wind from 1939, followed up by Lawrence of Arabia from 1962, and closing out with Schindler's List from 1993. And if you've just heard that, and chances are you just did, you may be asking yourself, that is a very strange lineup for tonight's show. What do these 3 have in common? Well, as it turns out, very little. Not a whole lot. I'm gonna be honest with you, not a whole lot. But at the very least, we will be going sequentially, both in terms of what year these movies were released and in terms of what kind of overall backdrop they're set against. Because when we come back from the break, we will be jumping into Gone with the Wind, which takes place during the Civil War. And then the next movie will be in World War I and then in World War II. But that's jumping ahead way too far. So stick around after the break, where we'll jump into Gone with the Wind. Your Movie Central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. For our first movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Gone with the Wind from 1939, available to watch now on Max. For the basic plot summary of Gone with the Wind, we follow a love triangle between Scarlett O'Hara, the daughter of a plantation owner, Ashley Wilkes, her longtime kind of object of her affection, and the young playboy by the name of Rhett Butler, who is infatuated with Scarlett. So, I should mention that Scarlett is, in fact, the daughter of a plantation owner, and it is, wow, I don't know what I was about to say, but it is exactly in the way that you think, because this movie takes place right before, during, and after the American Civil War. So yes, her father does in fact own a plantation with, factually speaking, slaves. Now, this is one of the most iconic movies of all time. And right off the bat, there's kind of a strange dissonance there. You just kind of have to be prepared for that part going in and know that it's there. Doesn't exactly excuse it. It just means that it is a product of its time, and it is also set during a specific time period. So we're going to move on from that fact of the matter and cover one other fact of the matter about Gone with the Wind that is actually a bit easier to swallow than that, which is that right out the gate, Scarlett O'Hara is not one of my favorite characters of all time. In fact, I would probably rank her as one of the most annoying, self-entitled, selfish characters of all time. Personally speaking, I think Scarlett O'Hara is downright unlikable. And I don't mean because her actress Vivien Leigh does a bad job at being a character in a movie. If anything, she does a really good job at it. And I don't mean that the original author of the book that the movie is based off of, or the screenwriters, or the director, or anybody else had any contribution to making that character herself be a badly written, or badly performed, or badly executed character. What I mean to say is that, if anything, Scarlett's acting, or more so performance, and writing is so good at making you not like her. It is exceptionally good at making you not like her for the entirety of the movie, and you really only feel true sympathy for her near the end. Now, I should also throw in the caveat that this type of thing only tends to work, and it only really results in the audience not hating a character outright when you tend to throw punishments their way for being entitled and annoying. And thankfully, Gone with the Wind is really good at that, because it's set during the Civil War. If that doesn't really prove to be a good breeding ground for complications and problems arising in any protagonist's life, I don't know what else would be such a good example of that. Many other wars, of course, but the American Civil War is a war, and it counts, so I'll go with it. It is a very good place to throw complications at somebody. And although it's mainly the outside world that throws complications towards Scarlett, I should say that Scarlett is really good at being a complication to our other main character, who I have already mentioned, who I actually like in this movie, for a slightly different reason. The other kind of main character, other person on the poster for Gone with the Wind, is Rhett Butler, played by Clark Gable. Rhett Butler is essentially the target of all of Scarlett's selfishness and problems. He's a playboy, sure, but he is also infatuated with Scarlett. Like, he cannot take his eyes off of her. He wants her to marry him. It's ridiculous how often he chases after her, despite her not giving him the time of day. And yet, if it wasn't Clark Gable, I would honestly be against Rhett. I would honestly be against him. But because he's played by Clark Gable, I tend to root for him more often than not. It's so difficult to always articulate what I want to say about things. But with Gone with the Wind, there's just so much to say that it's a real chore restraining myself to just these two main characters, keep in mind. So I'll go off a little bit here for the remainder of this review and talk about some of the big things about Gone with the Wind that make it great, beside from just the two main characters. For one, if you've never seen it before, it is in fact 3 hours, 45 minutes long. Still falls into our category for the night of 3-hour-long movies, sure. But it is on the longer side. It's very close to 4 hours. And despite that, I have sat through it multiple times and can confirm that its pacing is spot on the entire way through. There is no lags in the pace whatsoever. It doesn't really slow down. And because it's set before, during, and after the Civil War, if anything, they kind of have to cram stuff in and almost rush through stuff. Not actually rush, but you know what I'm saying. They have to keep it fast moving because there's a lot of ground to cover. It's an entire chapter of American history that they're cramming into one movie. If anything, I'm surprised it's not 4 hours long. So that is a massive credit to the movie. And each time I've watched it, it felt like it got 20 minutes shorter. That is what you want with this kind of length. Alongside of that, it's got absolutely wonderful music. I think the best kind of film scores are the scores where you listen to it while you're watching the movie and you're like, this is a really good musical score. And then you walk away from the movie and you're like, I don't remember the movie's music whatsoever. So when you go back to rewatch the movie, you don't exactly go in expecting to love it. And when it starts up for the first time, you go, man, I forgot how much I loved this music. That, or the songs that get stuck in your head, are the best kinds of film music, in my opinion. And Gone with the Wind falls into that category of, oh, I didn't remember how much I loved this. It's absolutely wonderful. Highly recommend listening to just the main theme of Gone with the Wind. If you've never seen the movie somehow, because a lot of people have seen this movie before, believe you me. But if you somehow haven't seen it before, at least checking out the main theme will do you good. I would highly recommend it. Alongside of that, with it being made in 1939, Gone with the Wind is surprisingly well put together. It's extremely coherent, it's extremely well made, and a lot of it holds up perfectly in terms of effects, in terms of acting, in terms of the sound quality, in terms of just all the ways it looks. Even if you're watching it on a VHS on a TV that is not meant to be playing VHSs, which is what I've done twice while watching this movie, I can confirm it still holds up in a specific way. And it's also a perfect testament to how movies are made then, how movies were made back then, how movies are made. Yes, we make a movie in the current year 2025 and we send it back to 1939 using magic or something like that. It's a testament to how movies were made and how they cannot be made like that anymore. I would highly recommend checking out Gone with the Wind. Again, I could say so much more, but I've said things that people have definitely already said before while providing my own take on it. So I consider that a success. And speaking of something that many people have talked about before, but I will then be providing my own opinion on. After we come back from the break, we will jump into Lawrence of Arabia, which I actually have a very interesting opinion on. So stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Lawrence of Arabia from 1962, available to watch now on Max. For the basic plot summary of Lawrence of Arabia, we follow a British lieutenant by the name of T.E. Lawrence during World War I as he is sent to Arabia. Shocker, the movie called Lawrence of Arabia involves a guy named Lawrence and Arabia. At any rate, while he is in Arabia, Lieutenant Lawrence decides to go against his orders and help the tribes that he was sent to simply advise. He decides to help them overthrow the Ottoman Empire in their area. So, crazy idea there. Let's see how he follows through with it. Well, he goes about it by violently attacking Ottoman Empire outposts. Keep in mind, this is World War I, so the Ottoman Empire hadn't fallen yet. So, right off the bat, I want to establish that the actor playing Lawrence in Lawrence of Arabia, Peter O'Toole, did a really good job. Omar Sharif, who is Sheriff Ali, the advisor to the prince that Lawrence is assigned to, does a really good job. And Alec Guinness, who plays Prince Faisal, who is the prince that Lawrence is assigned to, all three of them do a very good job. Alongside of that, the music and the cinematography and the editing to this movie are iconic and very, very good. Don't get me wrong, when I violently shift course here and tell you right now that I'll be completely honest with you. Lawrence of Arabia, it's an iconic, well-known, well-liked movie that many people have considered one of the best of all time, and I get why. But it's not one of my favorites. In fact, I don't exactly like it. I don't dislike Lawrence of Arabia, but when I think of the iconic epics of our time, I'm not sitting around thinking about Lawrence of Arabia. I'm sitting around thinking about, Gone with the Wind, or maybe even Ben-Hur sometimes. Weirdly enough, Lawrence of Arabia doesn't really pop on my radar as much as it would. And it's strange to me that this is the case. Rather than diving into the movie any more than I already have, which isn't a whole lot, keep in mind, rather than trying to dig deep when in reality I have such a dissonance, I'd like to kind of unpack that for the remainder of my review on Lawrence of Arabia. Because I do know that one of my regular listeners is quite a fan of Lawrence of Arabia, and it'd be a disservice to him to not at least explain my viewpoint of it. So for his sake, and for the audience's sake as a whole, let me kind of start at the beginning and say that I did end up watching this movie when I was a bit younger for the first time. So at that age, I didn't exactly understand 3-hour movies. I didn't exactly understand movies in general. I wasn't exactly a big movie guy, as much as I am right now. So at the time, it didn't really impact me all that much. And so I didn't exactly like it. I found it kind of boring and kind of slow and a little bit too long. I feel like it was a couple years after the fact that I ended up rewatching it. And I was a bit warmer to it on a second viewing. and I appreciated it a little bit more. But I still didn't exactly love it. I didn't fall in love with it as much as the person who recommended it to me had. So I don't want to fully bank on it, but I'm almost sure that I've seen it one other time besides those two examples. So I've seen it at least twice, maybe 3 times. I can't be fully sure. What I do know is that I've spent at least 6 hours of my life watching Lawrence of Arabia. And I haven't spent those 6 hours of my life absolutely adoring the movie. Partially because I don't remember relating to Lawrence as a character all that much. I don't remember him being badly written. I just remember him being not exactly the most charming, not exactly the most winning over for me personally. I don't remember him being the most interesting person to watch on screen. I found people like Alec Guinness to be much more interesting. I didn't really take in the vast stretches of morality that this movie covers, what with it being set in the place that it is and set during the time that it is. There's a lot of leaps here and there, especially on the side of Britain and the Ottoman Empire in World War I and in Arabia just as a whole. Excuse me. It's a really good space to kind of explore human morality, and I've been told so many times that it does that perfectly. But I never got that experience out of it. And I can acknowledge the technical aspects of it being good, of it being well made, of it being important. I can understand the hype behind it. I can understand that when this movie came out in 1962, it was a big deal because of how massive and grand it was on an epic scale. Lawrence of Arabia is known for being like massive in terms of it. I believe it was CinemaScope, like big 70mm screen, massive aspect ratio, huge screens where you just take in the desert around you and just let it all soak in. And I saw it on big TV screens. That was the only way I watched it. I experienced it in probably the best modern way to watch it, on the collector's edition. And I still it never clicked for me. Even now, as I stand here talking about it, part of me wishes I had rewatched it before going into this review. But I want you to understand that there was a good reason I didn't. And that was because if it hasn't clicked for me twice, am I super confident that it will click for me again? I don't know. I'm kind of half divided. I'm so divided on whether or not it would click for me a second, maybe a third or fourth time around. But it's too much of a gamble, is the point I really want to emphasize. With it being another movie that's about 3 hours, 40 minutes long, such a gamble is not always worth it to the life of a college student. Sitting through another 3 hours of this movie with no guarantee that I will walk away going, my opinion is completely changed and I absolutely adore it. I don't want that to be disproven. I don't want that to not happen. Speaking of, I guess, things I don't want to happen, the next movie that we'll be talking about, Schindler's List, involves something that I think we all wish never happened. So stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Schindler's List from 1993, available to watch now on Netflix. For the basic plot summary of Schindler's List, we are transported forward from World War I to World War II. More so speaking of how Lawrence of Arabia was in World War I, this one is in World War II. During World War II, we follow Oskar Schindler as he opens an enamel factory and begins to hire Jewish workers to profit off of the war. Oskar Schindler is in fact a part of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which if you don't know what that means, look it up. As time passes, Oskar Schindler comes to the realization that either inadvertently or through his own actions more so, basically by hiring Jewish workers, he is protecting them from concentration camps and decides to eventually keep them there for the remainder of the war in order to save them. Now, that sounds like a very difficult topic. Are we going to cover what happened to the Jewish people during World War II? Yes. Yes, we are. And let me tell you up front, if you've never seen Schindler's List, and people will tend to tell you that it's brutal, let me tell you, newsflash, they're not lying. It's brutal. It's very brutal. It is, without a doubt, the most graphic depiction of what I'm going to call, not to devalue the event itself, more so to censor myself just in case of, I guess, radio ethics. The event that starts with a holo during World War II. The unfortunate killing of many Jews during World War II. I have never seen this event portrayed so graphically on film in comparison to Schindler's List. Essentially, before watching Schindler's List, I'd never seen it portrayed in such a real and brutal way. Almost to the point of me realizing that no matter what the actual truth was, the basic idea of the thing is so incredibly awful and horrific that you could make up lies about what happened in those camps during that time, and the vast majority of people would believe it. And you can't even fault people for believing it, even if it's made up. That's how awful this situation was and how effective this movie was at driving that point home. This is the movie that made me realize, if you made up stuff about this and it was still awful, I don't think it would even come as close to what it was actually like. And I've heard this movie's very close to what it was actually like, so keep that in mind. So many things, so many emotions to unpack with an event like that, an idea like that we need a cleanser before we continue with the review. So let me tell you, who do you think they got to play Oskar Schindler in Schindler's List? You get 3 guesses. I'm not going to give them to you. I'm joking. You would be surprised to hear that Liam Neeson is the one playing Schindler, Oskar Schindler himself. When I say you'd be surprised, if you're familiar with the movie at all, you're not surprised even a little bit. But for people who may grow up in our current year and then after the fact, they might not know that Liam Neeson was an actual actor before he became the star of Taken and a bunch of other B-level action movies throughout Hollywood. If anything, it still surprises me. It's a bit like seeing Jason Statham be in, like, I don't know, a courtroom movie, right? It's almost exactly that same effect of, this is now a well-known action star who was in an emotionally heavy piece of art. That's an interesting comparison. And the best part about that comparison is that you can directly compare it to anything he did after the fact. Because I'll be completely honest, if it wasn't Liam Neeson, I don't know who they would have gotten to play Oskar Schindler. He does a really good job. He does an honest to goodness bang-up job as this character. He's tall, he's brooding, he's well put together, and brutal in the right ways. More so, insistent. Brutal is the wrong choice of words. Schindler is insistent on keeping the Jews that he has hired in his factory, whether that be to save them or simply to profit off the war, which is an interesting point about Schindler. He's not exactly a likable person. He's not hateable, not even close to the unlikableness of Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind either. But he's not exactly someone that you applaud the entire way through. It takes a while for you to start really rooting for him. Again, that kind of thing is always so difficult to balance. But skilled filmmakers know how to do that. And of course, this movie is directed by Steven Spielberg. If that's not a film skill maker, wow, a skilled filmmaker, I don't know what is. On top of that, some of his scenes really got to me. Actually, one of his scenes really got to me. The ending scene. Many people talk about the ending to Schindler's List as being the thing that got them. I can attest to being one of those people as well. Near the end of Schindler's List, I was so close to just full-on ugly crying all over my computer. It was tense. In order to kind of break up this review of things that are good or tense or difficult about Schindler's List, the thing that I want to highlight about this movie is that although I can never possibly relate to the topic that it covers, because I do not have family who was affected by this event, I can highly recommend this movie for people who were and weren't involved, more so have family members involved with it, have some form of connection to it, because it is really effective at making you feel for the people who were affected by it, right? Both if you have a family connection or if you don't. There's something so incredibly true and real and stinging about the hardships that the Jews within this movie experience that, again, is very difficult to mimic. Not only is it difficult in terms of the contents of that, but it's also just apparently so difficult that people just don't try it anymore. If Spielberg did it, why should we do it? So many... Again, the only reason I'm stuttering with this review is because it's a heavy topic. It's difficult to talk about. So I'll leave it with this. Schindler's List has some of the best film editing I have ever seen. I had to rush to make sure that this movie won an Oscar for best editing. It did. Thank you. Awesome. Really good. And I was surprised as well to see how good the sound mixing was. It goes to show that even with its attention to detail and its ability to really make you feel with the topic that it's covering, such small details can really enhance the experience and make it stand out rather than just being that movie that's really good at portraying the suffering of the Jews during World War II. Not just that, more so of it is good at that thing and that thing alone. No, it's a good movie on its own right. Here are all the layers to it of it being good at editing, good at sound mixing, good at acting, good directing, and also it's really good at showing the suffering. Highly recommend Schindler's List, although it is a bit difficult to sit through. Really, really good. My mind is still blown. Man, I won't be able to unsee it. But with all of that being said, we are going to close out the show for the night. Thank you for listening in to What to Watch Wednesdays. If you are interested in listening in further to more critiques from me, I will be back here on 88.1 The Burg this Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m. for What to Watch Weekends. And I will also be back next Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg for the next episode of What to Watch Wednesdays. If you want to follow up with the show, please follow the Instagram page at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces, and check out the YouTube channel at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. Thank you all for listening in once again. I will be back here next Wednesday where I will tell you all what to watch. Good night.